You are looking live at a weekly chart of the Nasdaq, which had another good week last week, up 345 points or 2.11% and closed at 16,680. We'll call it six, rounded up to six. The volume was higher. I'm going to get to that in a minute. This is the weekly, review. Thank you for tuning in. Today is Saturday, May 18th, and the markets are closed. If you just are a primitive person and just want to say, look, there's a market in an uptrend or a downtrend, well, 10,000 to 16,000 is a clear, 60% move to the upside. And we are in an uptrend, okay? Even a kindergartner can figure this out. We want to look, a little more detailed view. So I'm going to go to the daily chart, and you can see, last summer and fall, we had the three waves down. Then we had this 32% move higher, and then it topped on March 21st. We had a 9% garden variety correction. I love the term garden variety. And then now we're in a resuming our uptrend. I do want to point out one thing, and credit to Mike Webster for his work on the power trend, as we are, he counts the low of the session above this magenta line, the 21. The green is the 10, the magenta is the 21, the red is the 50 simple. And it's been, the low of the session has been above the 21 for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sessions. So all we need is 10, so that qualifies. But what is missing here is the 21, this magenta line has to be above the 50 for 5 sessions, and it's only been 4. So right here on this day, 16,120 is above the 1698, and that was the first day, 2, 3, 4. So on Monday, we need an up day, and we need the 21 above. So if the market just doesn't completely fall out of bed and crash on Monday, and if we have an up day, which is possible, we've had 2 pullbacks here, then we will start a power trend, and I'll get more into that, with my folks at MC Stock Charts. But, we don't trade indexes. We look at stocks, and people want to know about, stocks. What stocks can I buy? What stocks are actionable? What's setting up? What's falling apart? And anyway, before I get to any of that, I want to discuss this volume thing, because people are giving me a hard time with volume. When you see stocks like this, these junk stocks, which trade 153 million on a average daily session. Now it's trading, last week it was over 1 billion shares. So this is what's, driving the, the volume higher. This one trades on the Nasdaq. Tilray is another pot stock, a dollar stock, $2 stock with massive volume coming in. Of course, the meme stocks, AMC, have been getting massive volume, and GME, Roaring Kitty, now is turned into a little pussycat, I guess. As it ran up, they ran it up, and then they brought it back. Classic pump and dump stuff. Anyway, I don't care about any of that stuff. I want to get to the meat and potatoes of the market. This is Nvidia, a stock that I believe is set up in a base, a stock to set up, to move higher. It's been consolidating since that 974 on March 8th. So it's been a couple of months where it's been in this base here. The options market is indicating a 9.5% move with their earnings. Unfortunately, we have these wild gaps on earnings, which I'm going to get to today, some of them anyway, because of the Regulation Fair Disclosure Act in 2000 under the Clinton administration. We have these wild swings with earnings. So Nvidia, I was going to say a 9.5% move would take it above, 1,000, and under the downside, if it goes down at 9%, you're looking at it back, it's still above the, the low of this base, but near, the 825 area, roughly, 830. Anyway, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Just because the options market says 9.5, it could have a muted move, might not do anything. Might have a 20% move. You don't know. So you just got to wait and see, hear what they have to say on Wednesday. That's an earnings report that I am looking forward to, and I think everybody else is. Google, I'm not going to go through all the Mag 7 stocks. I'm just going to go through. Google looks fantastic to me. It made, gapped higher following earnings at 174.71. Now it's pulled back to its 21 EMA and just kind of forming a base here. to me, well, since it's a weekly review, yeah, earnings are ticking higher. It needs another week or so, to form another base here. Obviously, we had, base here, cup with a handle, base here of consolidation, and it ran up. Now it's starting to form another base. So I'm definitely watching Google there at the 174.71. Another one of these mega cap technology stocks that's performing well is Amazon. Made this high here of 189 on April 11th. Now it's been consolidating, not bad, in a base here for what I think this is about 5 weeks now. So just kind of forming a little base here. I would pulling back to moving averages and finding support. Since it's a weekly review, I'll show the weekly chart, and there's that base there, and you can see the 3 weeks type setup. Earnings heading due north, which is what I like to see. And of course, Meta sold off with a fantastic earnings report, and it's just consolidating within a base here. It made that high prior to the earnings report of 531 on what day was that? April 8th, and has sold off ever since. So Meta looks fine. All right, I'm going to get to some of the stocks that I've had on my ready list and stocks that are performing well. I'm just going to go through groups. I'm not going to get to all of them. I'm not going to do the gold and all the Bitcoin. I'm not going to get to the home builders. There's a lot of areas that are doing well that I'm not going to get to. I'm just going to focus on a few areas and then get to my gaps this week. This is Qualcomm, had this double bottom base gap tire, one of our gap stocks there, up 10% with volume has just continued to move higher. Qualcomm looks fantastic here. Don't like that earnings line going sideways, but the stock looks fantastic. Was up 6.5% last week. We'll take that every week. Applied Materials reported last week, and they have no growth. It's just zero sales growth quarter after quarter. The earnings line is just flat, and you can see the stock has gone flat base pattern here for 7 weeks. I know it's near a buy point, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with Applied Materials. It is set up in a base. I would like to see some more sales and earnings growth with that one, though. And then AMD, this one, a lot of people give up on this one. I can see why. It sliced its 50, it traded down to its 200. There at 141, it's probably a gift there, and now it's trying to rally back through a down trending 50 simple moving average. The RS line now is, ticking up through the moving averages. So AMD looks pretty good to me. And I'm going to move on from these semiconductor names. I want to get to some of the other groups here. And I'm going to include CLS in this group. Somebody asked me to look at CLS. And this is with the electrical contracting manufacturing group with, Sanmina, Jabil, Flex, Fabrinet. But this is a Canadian contract manufacturer. And you can see the earnings line heading due north. A couple of things when I look at when I'm looking, just researching a stock, I want to know the shares in the float. What's the supply? So how much demand does it take to move that stock? And with 116 million, that's not a lot. I also look at, their cash flow, return on equity, the up down volume 1.3, which is good. The EPS rating, very strong. And the group rating, the accumulation distribution, it all looks good here for CLS. And I also look for partners in the group, to see how they're doing. So this to me is set up in a base there, that 5112 that it made on April 4th. That looks like it's set up in a base pretty nicely. And I look at some of the others in the group. Sanmina setting up in a base here. Not real strong on the earnings front, though. You can see the earnings is down. It's kind of a base on base pattern. I mentioned FN, earnings line heading up, kind of in a consolidating in a base here. And that one looks pretty good as well. So the contract manufacturing group looks pretty good, except for this one I mentioned earlier, Jabil. Sliced its 50 and is just now sliced its 200, and this thing looks horrible. So that's a little bit of a concern, but they're not all going to go up. So anyway, CLS looks good to me, and it looks like kind of the leader of that group. Anyway, I want to look at the data center plays. Super Micro is one that people have given up on. I wouldn't. You could see the earnings kind of flatten out for a little bit. Now they're ticking up while the stock pulls back. This is a weekly chart. If I go to the daily, you can see that it's, it's playing teeter-totter here with the 50 simple moving average. This one's going to move with Nvidia's earnings this week. So if you have a big position here, it's going to move with Nvidia. So it could go either way. That's my assessment with Nvidia earnings can go either way. Earnings can go either way. It's a crapshoot. Dell Technologies, this is one that we had on our ready list last week. It gapped higher. This is why we pay attention to gaps too. One thing it did, it gapped up to 131, then it traded below the daily bar and the gap, which I don't like, but all it did was pull back to its 21, find support, made another new high, pulled back to the 21, kind of rode it for a long time. But then last week, it blasted higher, 12.6% move. We'll take that every week. Thank you very much. But Dell looks good. SMCI looks good. And then Vertiv Holdings looks good as well. Obviously, this thing's had a monster move. You can see this on the weekly when it broke out here and, $20 up to, 100. It's having a little bit of difficulty in meeting resistance at that 100 level. And this is no way near set up in any type of a base. It's extended, probably needs to base out, around that 100 number. These things don't go up forever. They need to form bases. And it's been a while for Vertiv. Yeah, been a long while. All right, so another one that another group that I like is the data storage group. I talk about this all the time. This is a cyclical group, and the cycle has changed. It's shifted. It's a turnaround. These are turnaround plays. And you can see that's a top group, top 10 group. And you can see the earnings line, it bottomed out and now it's going the other way. So the stock is going to respond to these earnings reports. There you can see it on the weekly, and there's the daily. This thing is set up in a base and definitely going to be on my ready list next week. I like the looks of Micron on all different time frames. Micron looks fantastic to me. Pure Storage, we had it on a ready list last week, but it broke out, so you have to take that one off. But it's still one that I'm going to watch. You can see the double bottom base and the breakout, but if I go to the daily chart, first of all, it'll give us its earnings date, which is May 29th, which is coming up. Beware. And you can see it's gapped up before following earnings, made that high, and then formed that double bottom base. And now it's, trading higher again, running into the print. So I'd be a little cautious there. Don't like being real heavy into earnings. You have to know when your stock is reporting earnings because there can be blowups. This is another one that gapped higher. This is NTAP, NetApp, gapped higher following earnings, formed the double bottom, much like Pure Storage, but it hasn't, broken out and traded, ramped higher to the upside like Pure Storage. This one to me is still actionable and looks pretty good. They report May 30th, so the day after Pure Storage. So those two earnings reports are going to move this group here, and I think they're going to be pretty good. All right, that's enough for the computer data storage. I know I'm going heavy tech today, but I got to talk about CrowdStrike. Had this one on our ready list last week. To me, it's a little extended here. I'm debating on whether I should put it on our ready list again this week, but it's 8.4% above the 21. I like to see the moving averages catch up. I like to buy when they're closer to their moving averages, but as Mick Jagger says, you can't always get what you want. So I'm thinking about this one this weekend. Definitely like the company, the stock. I like everything about CrowdStrike. I just don't want to buy extended and that get underwater on a garden variety pullback. So I'm debating on CrowdStrike. So for next week. Anyway, CrowdStrike looks good. Palo Alto Networks, they report on Monday, I believe. Yeah, May 20th, and that's going to affect CrowdStrike as well, and Zscaler and the entire group, because this is the big kahuna, 102 billion market cap, and they crashed and burned after their last earnings report. The CEO talked about a different accounting system, and Wall Street doesn't want to hear that. You can see that big bar there. Yeah, 23% weekly move, no bueno. But you can also see that the earnings line is ticking due north. You can also see that it's setting up in a base. So yeah, Palo Alto is going to move the software security names next week. And the last one that I wanted to show, oh, a couple more software names. I'm not out of the software group yet. Spotify, to me, just setting up in a base here, made this high of 316, pulled back, and then made another high of 319. But that's all within the same base period, I believe. Having trouble with the 300 psychological level of 300, which is resistance. So probably give that one a couple more time. I'm not going to give a specific amount of time, but it needs more time. Monday reported last week on Wednesday, and then in the morning, and then gapped up immediately 21%. We definitely pay attention to these gaps higher, then followed through the next couple of days, had an inside day on Friday, but Monday looks like one of the better software names out there, which has been selling off recently and starting to get some love. Elastic is another one that reports May 30th, just kind of forming a base here, following a sell-off after its last earnings report, but that one looks pretty good. This is in this software database group with Oracle and MicroStrategy, and that group has been pretty strong. I expect to hear good things from Elastic as it's an AI play. And okay, I've got to get to some of the energy names. People are asking me about some of these names. Constellation, doing nothing wrong, consolidated in a base, broke out following earnings, made a new high, and just pulled back to the 10 on Friday. To me, that's a healthy pullback. Maybe it'll even pull back to the 21 or come back to that old, pivot point of 198.83. But this is a strong stock, strong names, got $8 in earnings, and if we look at the weekly, we can see powerful move. This is a spinoff from Exelon, and the spinoff was in 21, 22, early 22, yeah, early 22, and it's just been a monster stock. So that one looks pretty good. Folks are asking about Quanta Services as well. Power, I still like the stock. Their earnings have kind of leveled off here. I would like to see them, and the stock has too, right? It's just trading sideways, consolidating in a base here. But if you're a patient person, I mean, you could see the trajectory of this. You could see the cash flow, return on equity, and not a lot of supply here. So up down volume, just average 1.0, but to me it looks good. And finding support at moving averages, broke out of its base on the daily, pulled back to the 50 a couple times, and just marking time. Power or Quanta Services looks good. So does STRL, Sterling Infrastructure, broke out, 15% move. This is why I pay attention to the gappers, and it has traded higher. Sterling looks fantastic as well. Yeah, pulled back. Oh, flat last week. That's about as flat as you can get. 6.4% off of its high. So Sterling looks good as well. Less than 30 million shares in the float. So it doesn't take a lot of demand to move these. VST is utility. This data center energy plays, and this thing has been on a heater, nowhere near any type of a buy point. You can see the earnings line is just going sideways, but the stock is ramping. It's got those David Ryan ants on there, indicating buying, institutional buying. So anyway, that's it for that group. I have to go to the miners. I don't want to, but I have to. Southern Copper has been a monster. Copper has been really ripping, and this is trading higher with the commodity. You can see the earnings lines, no great shakes, but the stock is. So we're interested in stocks, right? And I don't trade the commodity, but we had this on our ready list last week, and it certainly did perform well for us. I'm going to take it off because I believe it's a little extended. It was up nearly 6% last week. So Southern Copper looks good. The other one that was performing well was CCJ. Still kind of in a base here. It was up 4% last week at its highs. Yeah, see that 51.33, just a consolidation cup with handle, and had a good day Friday, up 6%. FCX report. This is a weekly review, so I'll go to the weekly. Yeah, broke out of the cup with handle and trading higher. That's extended. Yeah, I'm not interested in that one. And then Alcoa, had this like stage 1 base that it broke out of. It had this big cup and then a long handle here as it pulled back below its 21 and broke out last week. Had a fantastic week. Now it's above 41. Wow. Yeah, it was up 11% last week. That's a big move for Alcoa. Heck, it's a big move for any stock. And the last group, I've got to go to retail. I love my retail. On holdings, you could see the earnings, kind of choppy here, but heading north now. And you can see the breakout last week up 25%. Powerful move out of its base. And you could see here, I forget the day, what was the 14th? Was it Monday? Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday morning. Okay. So it broke out, gapped higher 18% and just followed through higher. Very strong Friday, 4% move. That one looks great. CROX is another one in this shoe group. This one made that high of 146, consolidated in a base below its 50, and then gapped higher on its earnings report, nearly 8%, and then ran up to that old high of 146. I know the bears will say, oh, that's a double top. It topped here and it topped here. It's got to go down. It'll probably pull back to a moving average, but I wouldn't give up on CROX. It looks pretty good to me in this base. Earnings line just barely ticking due north, but Deckers reports this week, and it's going to move that shoe group. You can see Deckers with the Hoka and Uggs brands on fire. It's had a big move, got included in the S&P and just consolidating in a cup-shaped base here. Let's see it on the daily. Yeah, there you go. So I'd have to look at the options market to see the expected move, but I'm thinking this one's going to move quite a bit with earnings next week. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, except for I have one more thing. I'm going to go through some of the gaps, the recent gaps, and people wonder about why gaps, why are you so and obsessed with gaps. I'm not obsessed. It's just since that regulation, Fair Disclosure Act of 2000, yeah, October of 2000, I believe. We're seeing these earnings gaps because companies aren't linking the information that institutions probably paid them for back in the day. So you could see them tick up prior to earnings. Now it's just a complete unknown. And I just wanted to point out some of these gap stocks from recent days. This earnings report, these could be also new leading stocks. They might have been misinterpreted or misunderstood or underestimated, or they could just be taking market share and growing like weeds. Like I think TMDX is pretty unique company here. As it gapped higher on May 1, 25%, and it just continues higher. You got to look at the weekly. It's a weekly review. You can see that it had this downtrend in the earnings, right? And the stock went with it, sold off. They spent some money to provide better products for their company, and it's paying off. And you can see it got in this little base here and just ramping higher. So TMDX is definitely one that I'm interested. Bros, another gap higher following its earnings report. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. Get this date right, I'll let you know. May 8th. Okay, it was up nearly 12%. I believe they're taking market share, and you can see the follow through on this. This is why I'm so obsessed with gaps. So the low on this day was 30, right? And the high was 32, and now it closed Friday at 36.70, even after pulling back, nearly 3% Friday. So that's why I follow the gaps. KD, this is a software name, not the basketball player. Gapped higher out of a base, mind you, out of a base, not out of thin air. 27% move, and it's just continued to trade higher, and this is why I pay attention to gaps. ZETA, another computer software group name, and this one gapped higher. Man, 18%, it just continues higher. Sold off one day, it pulled back. What, 2 cents? It's just continuing higher. This one has, a lot of buyers interested in ZETA, Zeta Global Holdings. All right, ASPN, this is one chemical company, gapped higher out of a base. following its earnings report on May 2. Yeah, 56% move. Thank you very much. And it's got those David Ryan ants pull back one day, 7%. Yeah, okay. That was your chance. That was ASPN Aspen TOST. This is that finance credit card payment stock. Broke out of a base here on May 8th, 13%, and continues to move higher. Pull back on Thursday and Friday with the index. But you can see this stage one base that is trying to emerge out of, kind of like bros. It's been a long, long time that it's sat in that base. LNTH, this thing was a beast during the 2022 bear market. I actually traded this one during the bear market. You can see 2022 here. This thing just wanted higher prices, right? But then during 2023, the bull market, it sold off and got into a little base, but now it's breaking out on what I would consider a stage one base. May 2nd, yeah, 16% move, and now it pulled back and undercut the low of the day, which I don't like. That scares me because I think it has a potential to come back and fill that gap, which I don't want any part of that. But it did. The low of that day was 74.83, and a couple days later, the low was 74.28. So it did undercut it slightly, but powered higher. So Lantheus still looks pretty good to me. BLBD, do we think school buses are going to be taking over the world? Probably not, but I'm just acknowledging that a big move, 24% move, and just trading higher. That session was 46 to 49, so you caught it in the middle at 47.50 or so, and now it's at 53. So you got 15% move there with Blue Bird Transportation. They make buses. GEN, this is a computer software group name. This one gapped higher following earnings, and it's just ramping higher. This one's on a rampage. Yeah, pull back Friday with some profit taking. Gotta expect that. Still near the 24.37 buy point. So Gen, definitely a stock of interest for me because I like that type of stuff. IESC, this is a top stock in one of the top groups, the building maintenance. It's got some other names in there that are strong, but this is the strongest one. It's up more than 100% this year. Gapped higher following its earnings report on May 3rd. Did not, undercut the low of that day, which I think is important. But it did sell off, Thursday and Friday pullback, some profit taking, right? There's profit and it's profits to be had. People are going to take profits. That's, common. That's expected. This is LMAT, a thinly traded stock, medical product stock, gapped higher on May 3rd, 11%. Just one that I'm monitoring, getting support at the 10 EMA, that green line there. So it's allowing the moving averages to catch up. So that one looks good to me as well. AppLovin, this it gapped higher on earnings, but there's a KKR, I don't know. Some company was selling like 17 million shares. So it's shown some weakness here recently with the news of that big kahuna selling some AppLovin shares. But I think this is still a company that has the ability to you look at the earnings line right here. I think it has the ability to move higher. And if you're an IPO person, you could say that this is just an IPO base and it hasn't even really broken out yet. So definitely AppLovin is one that I'm watching. Sweet greens, never eaten there. A lot of people love this. I guess it's a health conscious food stock. 34% move, and now it's just forming this what I would call like a flag or a pennant type of pattern here, and that looks really good to me. If you like that type of thing, which I do. I did mention okay, I'm going to go to THC, one of my favorite symbols here. This is my last one. Tenet Healthcare, yeah, medical hospital, not something you think of as revolutionary, but 13% move, and the high that day was 112, the low 104. Say if you catch the middle there, I don't know, 108. You bought it there, and it's just trading above its 10 EMA, and now it's at 128. So you got a $20 move, and I'll take that every day of the week. Anyway, This one looks pretty good, and you can see, you know, the earnings line, this big base here, and now it's trading higher, pull back to the 51 time. THC looks fantastic. That's my weekly review. Thank you for watching. We're in an uptrend. Enjoy it. Don't get too crazy. At mcstockcharts.com, we never give up. Thank you for watching.